If the writer is building the world and the what and the why, then our job is the how. Our job is literally just to bring it to life, which is sort of the miracle part of the equation, but also just a very specific thing.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Tom Pelphrey is an actor. This is his second time on the podcast. His first time was episode 112. He sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
When I see a role that you're doing like this in A Man in Full, which is different than other roles you've done, different than yourself.
Yep.
Since we last talked, you're an Emmy-nominated actor. You have respect in the industry. When I see a role like this, though, I think, oh, isn't this interesting? When something has to be done that's different than you've done, it's almost a beneficial kind of to be a unknown actor so that you can show in an audition something bold, a bold choice. Was it oddly actually harder to be a respected actor when you're going in for something like this? How did you prove that you can do this?
Well, this one, there was no proof, there was no audition. It was just finishing Love and Death, and David Kelly just offered it to me. I have to say, that's interesting in its own right, because when I read it, I thought, why do you want me to do this? You know? I did. And in a way of, you know, the first thing I'm always thinking about to some extent is, well, the story, and then how the character serves the story. And then you think, like, am I the right person to do this character? Because there's obviously so many good actors, you know, and you want, for the sake of everyone involved, you want to feel like you can have a maximal positive impact on the role. Not that you're the only one who could do it, but that you could do it very well, versus there are certain things where you go, I see how that's good, and I see why that's good. I don't think I'm the person to do that for you. And then maybe it's not the best fit, you know, because you want to succeed, and you want the story to succeed, and you want everyone, because, you know, so much work goes into this stuff, so much time and effort. But no, the more I read Man in Full, the more I fell in love with the role, and I was obviously very honored to have, you know, David asked me to do it right after we got to finish working on Love and Death together, and meant a lot to me, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was much like Love and Death. It was, I don't know if it's something about David Kelly's writing or these characters in particular, because Don Crowder was also a lot of fun to play, but I found myself in those two jobs as an actor having a lot of fun. Reminded me of, there was moments of, like, I was like, oh yeah, this is what it felt like in high school.
Tell me about the actual creation of this character, because it's so different from you. Is all of that on the page that you are just stepping into, or was there choices that had to be made from you or in conjunction with David? It probably is even like the costume designer, because the glasses are such a huge part of this too. There's so many choices here that inform us of the character that had to be decided.
Yeah, that's a great question. And in particular, in Man in Full, our costume designer, Megan Kasperlik, is phenomenal. Really just the next level. And Megan was very interactive in terms of talking with me about the character and wanting to have discussions. And I had certain ideas, and she'll laugh. I'm working with her now on the thing I'm doing now, and I'm so excited to be working with her again, genuinely so excited, because a great costume designer is really an actor's best friend, you know. And so we had some conversations, and then I show up to the first fitting, and it was as if she'd read my mind. Like everything Megan had and did, I was like, this is perfect, this is perfect. And I find myself saying it on this job as well. So it's more just to do with how talented she is. But no, you know, it is all on the page. And then it's funny, I was just having this conversation the other day, but it's like, if the writer is building the world and the what and the why, then our job is the how.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I believe that our job is literally just to bring it to life, which is sort of the miracle part of the equation, but also just a very specific thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I know what you mean.
And there can be conversations and such, if you're like building something with someone, or if you're developing a script, or sometimes perhaps when you really get in it and put the blinders on, you know, you might find that certain things work better than others, and then you can have that conversation. But for the most part, it's being able to take all the information that you're getting off the page and filter it through, and then bring it to life. And so with A Man in Full, it was also a lot of fun to see the sort of arc of the character, and that was a conversation, some really cool conversations I got to have with Regina King, which was another really, you know, amazing part of that job. Is one of my acting heroes and somebody I really admire for what they do as an actor is this director, and it was wild. I mean, it was so, the conversations we were having about character, it was very strange because, you know, usually you need to, for me anyway, in my experience, you're still translating a little bit when you're talking to a director. It's like, okay, I can't go like full weird what I think in my head.
Yeah.
I need to, you know, I need to present this in a way that, you know, but I don't know if Regina just instantly relaxed me or caught me off guard, but I started talking to her kind of how I talk to myself, and she didn't miss a beat. She's like, yep, I agree, I get that, but. And it was so much fun. Yeah. It was so cool to have that kind of conversation with somebody who you know is going to be there looking after everything and shaping it and building it and keeping an eye on it. And Regina said the coolest thing. She said, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but what I want to do is I want to get an idea of what you want to do, and I just want to make sure you're on track.
Whoa, that's all a director should do, right?
Well, it depends.
It's all that needs to be done.
I mean, it's sometimes, but also sometimes, you know, I've had bad ideas and need good ideas. You know,
but that's part of the keeping on track thing.
Fair,
right?
That's fair. I mean, I think everybody's kind of in agreement that a huge part of, I would think everybody's in agreement. A huge part of dealing with actors is casting. Yeah. It's like if you get the right one for the right role, then really there probably shouldn't be too much need for tinkering.
Yeah. It's almost like you realizing this person who usually is from another planet, the director, is actually from your planet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, like that matters so much then, doesn't it? Because it's also in the work when the camera's rolling too. You knowing that person's back there from your planet.
Yes.
I mean, I know that sounds like I'm disparaging all directors, but it must matter in the moment for safety for you or something, or comfort. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to have comfort from a director, but you're absolutely right. And what we have to keep in mind is the directors have so much to focus on.
Yeah.
They have an enormous amount of responsibility on their plate. Yeah. I mean, enormous. And I like to think of it that way, and I like to think, well, what can I do to help you?
Yeah.
You know, and what I can do to help you to do my job is to be on top of it, to communicate with you if you want to talk or not. Yeah. I'm also happy to just show up on the day, and if you like what you're seeing, you don't even have to say anything. We'll just keep going, and you know, because it's a team sport for sure. Yes. It's a team sport for sure. But you know, in a lot of ways, the directors, the kind of the coach, like they got so many different players and things they got to keep their eyes on, and so yeah, I mean, for sure, you have someone like Regina, you feel totally and completely safe because you know there's not a place I can go where she can't understand and decide if it's right, or, you know.
Yeah.
But likewise, there are other directors who aren't actors and have never done this thing and don't necessarily even speak in that way, and yet they're so attuned to what's in the pocket or what's good that they will likewise make you feel very safe, just in a different way.
Right.
I think the Regina of it all was just a kind of not indulgent, but it was like so pleasurable to get to have that kind of conversation with somebody who you know is going to be in charge.
Right.
And that is, I think that if you start to expect anything like that, you'll be disappointed.
It feels like you avoided like this caricature with this guy, and I'm a big David E. Kelley fan, right? Like my favorite show of all time, which I'm almost embarrassed to say this, because when you watch it, you're like, whoa, this is of a time, is Boston Legal. The characters are so strong, but it's pushing toward this absurdity. You could have gone that absurd route with this guy very easily, because it's also like, it's David E. Kelley. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be pushing toward, but you didn't. What was involved in that for you to keep it kind of contained? Because that's where the humor was, but also the reality enough for me to be like, this guy's alive.
Yeah.
And not just something that you're laughing at.
Yeah, well, I think that's always something that I'm thinking about or doing to the best of my ability anyway, is just, you have to make it all personal. And, you know, if you do that the right way to some extent, then you become the advocate in a way for your character, you know. And like, if you're doing it, to me, the right way, you genuinely enter a space where there's not judgment, you know. And there are certain styles, of course, where we want to hold the audience at arm's length, I suppose, to have them be able to see something in a different way. I didn't feel like this was that, though. You know, I don't know if it's also just a belief I have as a human being, but you know, Tom, feel that for the most part, we're all always trying our best, you know? And so then why would a character be any different? You know, like there's something he wants, maybe there's something that broke his heart, there's something that's not working. And I think there's still a way to do that and ground that even in something that's obviously a comedy, you know. Also, to be like, maybe the most honest answer is, if I didn't do that, I'd be terrified. I wouldn't know what the hell to do. Like, you know, Kaylee, my partner, is so funny, and she could go be in like, I don't get to do many comedies for a reason, because if you just put me somewhere and say, okay, you're gonna do like funny, you know, you're funny acting now, that would be a disaster.
That's funny.
So I also, out of self-preservation and protection, cling to, okay, this is what's he really like?
Yeah.
What does he really care about, and why?
Yes. Knowing that Jeff Daniels was going to be a big part of this, of your work, you know, and knowing, I don't think you've worked with him before, right?
No.
So when you prepare yourself for this, knowing that there's a titan that you're going to be working with, and you know, that's a roll of the dice, right? Because it could be a diva person or a true working actor. How did he meet your expectation, and what was the working process like with him?
Jeff is, and I've worked with a lot of people that I consider like very professional in terms of preparation, execution, attitude on set, all of it. But Jeff is like the definition of a pro. Like really, really impressive to work with him and to be around him and to watch him. Like that man shows up every day, 100% ready to go. And I mean, you know, that I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You know, it's such an attractive quality. It's like, definitely something I can get behind. Anytime I'm around somebody like that, it makes me want to do it even more. And you know, we had a conversation pretty early on where Jeff is basically like, we gotta jump off the cliff together, or this isn't gonna work. And I said, I agree. I agree. He's like, this is not a kitchen sink drama. I said, I know. I also think this is not a kitchen sink drama. And so, you know, pretty early on, I'd say in the first week or so, we did one of the scenes together at my apartment, and he saw that I was, you know, ready to jump off the cliff with him, and he said, good, all right, here we go. And, you know, it was a blast, but he is in every possible way a real professional.
Yeah,
like you could see why, you know, Aaron Sorkin's like, okay, I need that guy to be the lead in this show, you know. Really, really, really liked working with Jeff a lot, and he's got a lot of great stories, and got to talk football, which I love because he loves football too. But yeah, it's just a good reminder, you know. It's time and time again. Laura Linney, you know, so many of these actors, you're like, oh right, like part of what gets you where you got is you work hard, every day. Right. There's not a day where you don't come in probably knowing more than almost anybody here about what this scene is and what happened before and where we're going after. And even if you keep it to yourself, you know, it's, I greatly admire that quality.
Have you ever done a sex scene quite like this? Knowing that's on the schedule.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And knowing you have to actually, you know, do actual work in that, not just survive it or whatever.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is no, never done a sex scene like that before, for sure. You know, I mean, oh my God, I was reading the script and I'm like, David, this is like 5 pages long.
But it's so integral to the story.
It's
that's what's
perfect.
Yeah.
It is the right way for that show to end. I believe that 100%. But of course, it's daunting, and I'm going to be with Diane Lane. It's like, Jesus, a legend, and here I'm like, oh.
At least she's had some experience with sex.
She's had some experience. I've had experience with it too, but just not like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that was it was like a marathon of sex.
Yeah.
And but you know what's funny is like, just again, how we change and grow as people and stuff affects this thing that we do. Is like, I've always been so gung-ho, let's jump off the cliff, let's do anything. Oh, that's cool, if that works, I want to do it. Don't even think twice about it. And at the time we're going to film this, I knew I was about to be a dad.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden my thoughts were, I don't know how I feel about doing this. Truly, and not anticipated. Like, it surprised me that feeling snuck up on me, and was an interesting thing. And you know, I thought it through and talked it through again with Regina, and I think it made a lot of sense. And I do believe it's the proper like manifestation of an ending for the story we were telling. But it was intimidating in a way that I hadn't been intimidated about that kind of thing before. Luckily, again, Regina's directing, I'm with Diane, like there's just pros everywhere, and everybody was awesome about it. So
and now every other sex scene is going to feel like a walk in the park.
Totally.
That's the good thing.
Totally. Well, you know, they're all so technical and
Yeah.
you know, a little, could be pretty damn awkward. So
Yeah. There's one scene where it's the, what I'll call the make a mark on him scene with Diane in that restaurant. And you're just talking. I found that choice that you made so interesting. He's almost crying. And it's like, if you take the words and you give it to another actor, they would have done it in this other way that would have been too on the nose. The choice you made here felt deep and interesting and like, but off what, it's something different than what is written. I can't describe it. It's like, but it made it more rich with, and I'm just so curious about that choice. Do you know what I'm talking about? That scene?
Yeah, the one in the diner, kind of.
Because he's really revealing something, that this isn't over yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, it all boils down to like, we know where we started and we know where we're going, but like when we're making choices along the way, what choices are we making? Like if you looked at the whole relationship with Martha as, just a ploy or a con to get where he wanted to get with Charlie, then certain things don't matter and certain things are manipulative. And I thought, to me, there was a richer or more interesting choice where, even if that was in his mind when it started, that it became something very real, especially given where he was in his life, what was going on. To me, that made a lot of sense. And I said to Regina about that scene in particular, it's interesting that you bring this up. I guess I'm not surprised, but I said, this is the most honest he is in the entire show. This is really maybe the only time he's just completely honest with someone about anything. For some reason, the piece of writing always stuck out to me. So maybe David always intended it that way. I don't know. It moved me, especially knowing where we were going very shortly. And how this would all go. I thought, just because a character, goes over the edge in some way, doesn't mean that they're not like constantly trying to get away from the edge until they go,
Right.
Because sometimes there's a temptation of like, oh, I'm going over the edge. You're watching me run right towards the edge and jump. It's like, what if like in the final moment they just can't help it, but before that they're trying to get away.
Yeah. The last time you were on, you were talking about your former acting teacher, Deborah Headwall.
Yeah.
Great acting teacher.
Incredible.
And she said a thing that she often says is, you have to expand your life as an actor. You have to go to museums. You have to read great novels. You have to fall in love and get betrayed. You have to, this is what you said, you have to, all of this feeds the work. Well, since we last talked, you've become a dad. And what does this actually do for your actual work? Because everything affects the work of an actor.
Sure.
But this is a profound change of life. And I don't have kids. I'm hearing this a lot though. I'm worried about regretting this one day. I'm worried about what I missed because of what this is, this true life changing thing. But just talk about that.
Well, it is why, I mean, I got a 1-2 punch. So I met Kaylee and I fell in love, and I met my soulmate, and that in itself changed so much of my life. And very quickly we had this little girl, and man, I mean, it is so intense in such a beautiful way, but like it truly feels like my heart is like outside my body now. Like the thing that I care the most about is not inside of me, nor is it in my control. You know, it's under my protection. But yeah, it is. And so all you can do is surrender. I mean, that's all I can think of, because I mean, you wouldn't want to control it anyway. You know, it's it's like, you know, it's so, God, it is such a sacred, beautiful experience, because I wondered about this, and then I got to experience it with Matilda, but they come in as themselves. I really believe that. It's just so clear. She's come in with who she is. And so that's not up to me or Kaylee, you know, and it's just about keeping her safe and healthy and loving her and teaching her and helping her shape who she already is. And to that end, like, your heart grows 100 times bigger, you know, and you start thinking about things in very different ways. Like the thing that I'm working on now, fortuitously enough, I have kids in it, and there's an understanding now of that I wouldn't have fully known how to, you know, it's one of those things that you just don't really know until you know, and I don't really know how to articulate it, you know, but yeah, and then in the practical day-to-day side of it is also, like, you know, wanting to be very, very particular about what I say yes to that takes me away from being with my family. You know, which, look, if I can do that to some extent, then I'm already very lucky and winning, because that's a great choice to be able to make. But that becomes a real thing too, of, okay, this might have been worth it. This might have been awesome 2 years ago, but now there's kind of a higher threshold of what do you really want to do? Because time anywhere means less time there.
When you have to access your empathy then, as an actor, which is so important, like, do you feel like that's more easily accessible now?
Sure. Like, you certainly think, you notice things in slightly different ways, and I can't help but think more and more of, like, oh, that's somebody's baby. This is you're somebody's baby. I'm somebody. Oh, blah blah. Get on a whole wormhole with that, where you know, the it could be infinite sadness, but empathy, but also a sense of it's humbling, because it's really not in your control. You know, like, it brings in a lot more gratitude, because you think, it really is, like, all of a sudden you have this baby and you realize there's nothing more important to me in the universe than that we have a baby that's healthy. All of a sudden. And you would think that intellectually, but then all of a sudden you feel what that feels like, and you go, oh my God, there's everything is okay. Everything is fine. We have a healthy baby. How lucky are we? So I think you start to approach everything a little bit more like that, and it's easier to let go of certain things that maybe I was gripping a bit more tightly, because it's like the big thing came and I'm so in love with it and I can't control it, and I wouldn't want to anyway, and so you just you're just, you know,
like, why was I so silly about those things all my life?
And it's understandable too, you know, like, again, like I said before, I genuinely believe we are all doing the best that we can do. You know, from moment to moment. Some days we're in a higher place and we do amazing choices, and sometimes not so much. And but, you know, I think it's all a journey. But for sure, getting here was like a wild level up in terms of I don't even want to say level up because it's not better. It's just, it was like a wild teleportation into like a different dimension of seeing and understanding things. You know, so about letting go, about acceptance, and certainly about just in general feeling even more sensitive than I've ever felt about everything.
Tom Pelphrey, thank you so much.
I want to say thank you so much to you. I always really enjoy this conversation. Thank you for having me back on.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.